The stars were quiet above Earth, just like any other night. People looked up and saw nothing unusual, but far beyond what their eyes could see. Something terrible had already begun. Without warning, the Zorvani Collective, a powerful alien empire, attacked. They didn't send a message. They didn't ask questions. They simply struck first. In less than 2 hours, they destroyed all of Earth's communication satellites. Research colonies on Mars and Europa were hit next. One moment they were sending data. The next moment, silence, complete silence. The Zorvani believed the humans would panic. They thought Earth would fall into fear and confusion. They imagined chaos, people running in the streets, leaders shouting, governments falling apart. It was what happened with other species they had attacked before. But Earth did not fall. It waited. Deep under the oceans, in the North Pacific, a hidden command center lit up. It was called Echo Core, and it was built for one reason: in case of a first strike. Inside Echo Core, old generals and young engineers gathered. Screens flickered with red alerts. Data streamed from the remaining colonies, showing who survived and what was lost. At the center stood Commander Rima Solis, a calm but strong woman in her early 50s. She had retired 5 years ago. Now, she was back. She looked at the damage. Reports quietly. Her voice was steady as she said, "They hit hard, but not hard enough. We still have time. We still have options." Beside her, a young technician named Yelen whispered, "Why would they do this? We never attacked them. We only sent messages of peace." Commander Solis nodded. "That's exactly why. They saw our kindness as weakness." Across the room, a deep voice spoke. It was General Clark. Tall and quiet, once known as the Mountain in the Defense Corps, he said, "The Zorvani made a mistake. A very human mistake." Rima turned to him. "They thought we'd break." He smiled. "But we bend. Then we strike back." On the Zorvani flagship orbiting Jupiter, High Commander Reshkel stood watching Earth from a distance. His glowing eyes narrowed. No cries for help, no surrender signals, just nothing. A Zorvani officer spoke in a hushed voice. "They must be in chaos." "They must be," Reshkel growled. "Then why do their systems continue to shift power? Why are their deep stations going dark, not destroyed?" They didn't know it, but Earth was moving. All across the planet, bunkers activated, military bases locked down. Old defense programs once shut down by politicians were switched back on. Systems hidden in old satellites blinked to life. Forgotten programs with names like Iron Sky and Emerald appeared on screens. Humans were not screaming. They were preparing. In a quiet farm in Canada, a young girl named Leela looked up at the stars with her grandfather. "Why are the stars not blinking anymore?" she asked. "Where's the satellite I always see near the moon?" Her grandfather, a retired engineer, looked concerned. "Something's wrong," he said softly. "Very wrong." But even as fear crept into his heart, he also felt something else. Pride. Humanity had built great things. They had crossed space. They had colonized moons. They had created peace after many wars. And now, if they must defend it, they would dot in. Less than 12 hours, Earth was no longer reacting. It was planning. Secret fleets launched from deep-sea hangars and hidden bases on the dark side of the moon. They flew without lights, without signals, silent and fast, not to fight yet, but to gather information, to find out who attacked and why. Commander Solis stood before a room of Earth's top leaders. Through secure holograms, she said, "We will not rush to war, but we will not wait to be hit again. We will know our enemy, and when the time comes, we will respond, not with fear, not with fire, but with precision." The room nodded. There was no shouting, no anger, just cold focus. The Zorvani had struck first, but they had not destroyed Earth. They had woken something ancient inside the human spirit, something that had built cities from deserts, flown through space, and survived every challenge in history. They had woken unity, they had woken resolve, and above all, they had made one terrible mistake. They believed that silence meant defeat. But Earth was not silent because it was broken. It was silent because it was watching and preparing. It had been 5 days since the Zorvani attack across Earth. People were returning to calm but not comfort. News was limited. The internet was slower than usual. Space travel was paused. But inside secret bases and underground command centers, humanity was already planning something big. A new mission had started. A mission called Project Emberlight. Admiral Liana Reed had not worn her uniform in 10 years. She had retired after leading Earth's space fleet during the Mars expansion. But when she received a quiet message from Earth Command, she didn't hesitate. She walked back into the headquarters with sharp eyes and a mind ready for war. Project Emberlight was not just about fighting back, it was about understanding. The Zorvani had come with surprise. Now, it was time for humans to return the favor. Admiral Reed stood in front of her new team inside a secret base under Greenland's ice. Her voice was clear. We will not fire first. We will not destroy what we do not understand. But we will go to their space. We will watch them, and we will learn their secrets. Her team was a mix of military officers, engineers, spies, and scientists. Some were young, some were veterans. But they all shared one goal: protect Earth by any means necessary. The first mission under Emberlight was quiet and fast. 3 small stealth ships left a hidden hangar beneath the Antarctic ice. They were black, silent, and invisible to normal sensors. Their engines used special cooling systems to hide their heat. Each ship had only 5 people on board. They did not carry heavy weapons. They carried scanners, translators, and recording tools. Their target, the outer edge of Zorvani space. They took a long path, using old routes from past space mission spots. The Zorvani would never expect humans to remember. These were secret roads in the stars, once used to avoid asteroids or solar storms. Now, they were paths to stay hidden. The Zorvani believed Earth was weak, that humans only lived near their sun. But they were wrong. Humans had traveled farther than the Zorvani thought. They had maps, they had history, and now they had a mission. Meanwhile, on the Zorvani command ship near Saturn, High Commander Reshkel grew restless. Reports said Earth was too quiet. No signs of rebuilding. No distress signals. Nothing. This silence is unnatural. He said to his advisors, "It is not weakness. It is a trick." His advisors, smaller and nervous, nodded in agreement. One of them whispered, "Shall we send another strike, Commander?" Reshkel shook his head. "No, let them show their hand first. We must not waste resources." But even as he spoke, something was already happening far beyond their sensors. In deep space, near the frozen moons of a gas planet called Ketharin, one of the Emberlight ships hid behind an old mining asteroid. The crew watched as a Zorvani supply convoy passed by, recording full signal data. Said Technician Minna, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Confirming ship IDs," said Captain Ortiz. "Send the packet home." With a soft beep, the ship sent a small encrypted message back toward Earth. It would take several hours, but Earth Command would receive it. Information had become the new weapon. Another Emberlight ship entered a dead satellite ring above a captured moon. The crew found something strange: signs of rebellion, alien symbols scratched into metal, hidden messages in old tech. Lieutenant Kwan, a linguist, whispered, "These aren't Zorvani symbols. They're from other species, maybe prisoners or workers. Could there be others under Zorvani rule?" The pilot asked. Kwan nodded. "Many, I think, and not all of them loyal." The discovery gave Admiral Reed new hope. "If they rule through fear," she said, "then they are weaker than they appear." Back on Earth, the first pieces of intel from Project Emberlight arrived. Rima Solis and General Clark read the reports inside Echo Core. Their ships follow strict routes. "No changes, no randomness," said Clark. "That's a weakness. They think in straight lines," Rima added. "We don't." She smiled. "Time to think sideways." Soon, small attacks began in Zorvani space, not battles, but strange accidents. A fuel station shut down from a solar flare. A shipyard lost power due to a faulty core. Communications were lost on a mining moon. The Zorvani didn't know who caused it, but Earth did. Each event was carefully planned by Emberlight. No one was hurt. Nothing was stolen. But fear began to spread among the Zorvani ranks. They whispered, "Are the humans among us?" One Zorvani commander stared at a screen and muttered, "They strike like ghosts. They're not just fighting. They're learning." Admiral Reed watched the stars from her command deck. "We will not become monsters," she said to herself, "but we will make sure they never try this again." Project Emberlight had started as a mission to gather information. Now it had become something more. It had become the spark, the quiet light that would grow into a fire that would not burn without reason, but once lit, could never be stopped. The stars were still quiet, but things had changed. The Zorvani thought humans were slow, emotional, and weak, but now strange things were happening in Zorvani space. Supply stations were shutting down, signal towers were failing, weapons were locking up for no reason. Still, not one human ship had been seen. Zorvani leaders were confused and worried. Earth, on the other hand, was focused. Inside a secure mountain base in South America, Earth's top minds had gathered. This place was called the Nexus, and it was built not for war, but for innovation. Scientists, engineers, coders, and even artists sat around glowing screens and digital walls together. They were building something new, something powerful. Dr. Annika D'Souza, one of Earth's leading AI experts, spoke to the room. "We don't just need better weapons, we need better thinking." She pointed to a display of the Zorvani fleet. "They follow patterns. They trust machines to do everything. They don't adapt quickly." She turned to the crowd. "But we do. Humans change. We imagine. We create. That's how we win." At the same time, in orbit above Earth, a new type of ship was being tested. It was smaller than most Zorvani cruisers, but faster and smarter. Its name was the Whisper. What made it special was not its weapons but its pilot, Lieutenant Sarai. Kim sat inside a special chamber. Her mind was connected to the ship's core using a neural link. She could control the ship just by thinking. Her voice was calm as she said, "Engines online. Begin simulation." As she moved her hands slightly, the ship responded, instantly dodging invisible threats, flying through tight spaces, and changing course faster than any normal pilot could. Commander Reed watched from the control room. "We don't just fly ships," she said. "We become them." This was the next step in Earth's defense. Human AI fusion. It wasn't cold or robotic. It was alive, fast, creative, and emotional. The best of human instinct, joined with the best of machine precision. Back on the Zorvani flagship, High Commander Reshkel stared at failure after failure. "How can we lose when no one is attacking?" he shouted. His advisors gave no answers. They didn't understand it either. One nervous officer said, "We found traces of human code in our satellite systems." "Code?" Reshkel repeated. "You mean they are inside our systems?" The officer nodded. "Yes." "Commander, they are not destroying us. They are rewriting us." Reshkel's eyes narrowed. "We thought they were simple, but they're thinking like us now." Another officer whispered, "No, they're thinking faster." Back on Earth, inside the Nexus, the think tank continued to work. A group of young engineers had created drones that could build themselves in space using small floating materials. These drones were already flying quietly through empty zones, repairing human satellites and building relay stations to share data faster than ever. In another room, a group of artists and psychologists worked on something surprising: messages. "We don't just fight with weapons," said one of them, a digital storyteller named Malek. "We fight with ideas." They began sending short signals into space: music, images, and peaceful messages coded inside normal data streams. Some reached the edges of Zorvani space. Rebellious groups inside the Empire heard them. For the first time, they saw humans, not as enemies, but as hope. Admiral Reed received a report from Emberlight agents in deep space. A Zorvani mining moon had stopped sending data. When a scout ship visited, they found something shocking. The workers had taken over the base. They were not human, but they had heard the human messages. The leader of the rebels, a tall being with 4 arms and soft green skin, sent one short message back to Earth: We don't want war. We want freedom. We will stand with those who stand for truth, Reed smiled. Then we're not alone anymore. Earth's leaders gathered for a quiet meeting deep under the surface. Commander Solus, Admiral Reed, Dr. D'Souza, and General Clark sat at a round table. We are not just defending Earth anymore, Solus said. We are changing the way this galaxy sees us. Reed nodded. We've stopped reacting. Now, we're building. Clark added. They may still have the bigger army, but we have the stronger mind. And Dr. D'Souza said softly, the Zorvani fight with power. We fight with purpose outside the base. A new ship lifted into the sky. It had no name yet, but it carried the weight of a new idea that knowledge, courage, and unity could beat any empire. In the cold dark of space, the Zorvani prepared for a larger war. But what they didn't understand was this. They had started a fire they could no longer control. Not a fire of anger, but a fire of iron minds of humans who refused to give up, who learned faster, adapted better, and fought not for conquest, but for the right to live free. The Zorvani Empire was changing, but not in the way they wanted. For years, they had ruled many worlds with strict control. Their power was strong. Their ships were many. Their enemies feared them. But now, cracks were appearing in the empires. Walls far from their homeworld, on a small mining moon called Varela, a quiet rebellion was growing. The workers were not Zorvani. They were aliens from many different planets, captured and forced to work in harsh conditions. They had suffered under Zorvani rule for decades. But now, something was different. They had heard the human messages of hope, freedom, and peace. Lauren was one of the leaders of the Varela rebellion. He had forearms and bright blue eyes. His people were strong but tired. One day, while repairing a machine in the mining tunnels, Lauren looked up and saw a hidden message on his handheld screen, a message from Earth. Freedom is not given, it is taken, the message said. Lauren smiled. Maybe the humans are right. Maybe we can change our fate. His people gathered in secret. They planned. They waited. Back on Earth, Admiral Liana Reed received new reports every day. More and more alien groups under Zorvani rule were joining the rebels. She stood before her officers in the command center and said, "We are no longer alone. These rebellions show us that the Empire is not united." General Clark nodded. Their control is cracking. Their fear is growing. Reed looked at the stars. We must help them, but carefully. We cannot cause more suffering. The Zorvani Council on their homeworld was in chaos. High Commander Reshkal paced angrily in the Great Hall. We are losing worlds. Our systems are breaking. This is unacceptable. He shouted. The council members argued. Some wanted to send more ships to crush the rebels. Others feared the rebellion would spread to their homeworld. One wise elder spoke. Perhaps we must change. We cannot fight fire with fire forever. Reshkal ignored the elder. We will fight until the last star burns. But inside his heart, doubt grew. Meanwhile, on the surface of a distant planet, a group of Zorvani soldiers watched as rebel ships took control of a supply station. Commander Vec, young and uncertain, whispered to his second-in-command, "Are we fighting our own people?" His commander shook his head. "No, we are fighting those who want freedom." Vec looked at the stars. "Maybe we are on the wrong side." Earth's diplomats began sending peaceful messages to the rebellion leaders. Lauren and his people listened carefully. They were tired of war, but ready to stand. "We will fight for freedom," Lauren said, "but only if others join us." And they did. Rebel groups on different worlds began to connect. They shared information, supplies, and hope. They no longer feared the Zorvani. They feared only one thing, losing their chance for peace on Earth. Admiral Reed and Commander Solus met with the rebellion leaders through secure holograms. Reed said, "We will support you with supplies, knowledge, and hope. But the fight must be yours," Solus added. "We want a galaxy where no one lives in fear." Lauren smiled. "Then we stand together." The Zorvani Empire was broken, not by one great battle, but by many small acts of courage. It was not destroyed by weapons, but by the desire for freedom. As the rebellion grew stronger, the Zorvani leaders, realized they could no longer control their empire with fear alone. A new future was coming, a future where the voices of many worlds would be heard. The stars were no longer silent. Across the galaxy, signals moved between planets like sparks in the night. Messages of unity, peace, and courage passed from world to world. The Zorvani Empire, once feared by all, now faced something it had never expected. Hope, not just from Earth but from every planet that had once been under their rule. The rebellion had spread faster than any fleet could follow, and Earth had not brought war. It had brought an idea that freedom could rise from even the darkest corner of space. Admiral Iana Reed stood aboard the Whisper, now the lead ship in Earth's peace fleet. Around her, dozens of other ships from different species flew side by side. Some were old cargo haulers, some were fast fighters, some were simply science vessels retooled for communication. They didn't come to conquer. They came to talk. She looked at the large screen in front of her, showing the Zorvani homeworld Zorvek. It was a planet of glowing cities, silver towers, and rings of ships still circling above it. It had never been touched by war. Until now. Not by weapons but by truth. Admiral Reed opened a secure channel. This is Admiral Reed of Earth. We request peaceful entry. We carry no weapons. We carry only a message. There was silence. Then a voice replied. It was deep and tired. This is High Commander Reshkul. You may approach. Inside the Zorvani Grand Hall, Reshkul stood before the council. His shoulders were heavy. His voice was softer than before. They are not here to destroy us, he said. They could have attacked long ago, but they didn't, one council member said. They still struck at our systems. Reshkul nodded. Yes, but they only disrupted tools of war. Not homes, not people. Another elder leaned forward. Perhaps they are not like us. They're not, Reshkul said. And maybe that's why they've already won. The Earth Peace Fleet landed gently on Zorvek's surface. No weapons were drawn. No ships opened fire. Instead, human diplomats, scientists, and peace officers walked down ramps with open hands. Crowds of Zorvani citizens watched from a distance. For the first time, they saw humans not as enemies but as guests. Admiral Reed and Commander Solis walked side by side into the Grand Hall. Reed spoke clearly. We are not your rulers. We do not wish to take your world. We came because you struck first. And we came to say, never again. Reshkul stood silently for a moment. Then he bowed his head. We feared you, he said. We thought your kindness was weakness. But we were wrong. Solis stepped forward. Kindness is never weakness. It takes strength to choose peace. That day, something remarkable happened. The Zorvani Council agreed to end all force control over other planets. They would no longer use fear to rule. Together with Earth and the rebel leaders, they formed a new alliance, not an empire but a union of worlds that would work together with fairness and respect. The first official act of the new union was a shared message sent to every planet in known space. Let this be the end of fear. Let this be the beginning of unity. We were once enemies. Now, we choose peace. Months later, on a green moon called Lyric's Prime, a monument was built. It was not tall or grand. It was simple as stone with a single flame carved into it, round. The flame, in many different languages, was written. They struck first. But we stood last, and we stood for all. Children from many species visited the monument. They learned the story of how humans, once seen as weak, had changed the future without destroying it, not through force, but through courage, cleverness, and unity. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to peace. People planted trees again, schools opened. The stars were no longer something to fear, but something to explore with new friends. Admiral Reed returned to her quiet home by the sea. She looked at the sky, now filled with friendly satellites and peaceful signals. Commander Solis, still working at Echo Core, sent her a short message. We didn't win a war. We lit a flame, and it's still burning. Reed smiled, and it always will, because humanity hadn't just survived the first strike. They had answered it with something stronger than any weapon. They had answered it with hope.